What's going on, Workforce? Brian here, and it's time that we do a deep dive when it comes to the controller in Final Fantasy XIV. In this video, we're going to be talking about targeting, the movement in the camera, controller modes, setting of skills, and navigating the UI. This is going to hopefully help give you a real great primer for this game. Playing Final Fantasy XIV on a controller is actually both my preferred method, and it's probably one of the best MMOs out there to support controllers. So whether you're on PlayStation or on PC, you have this as a viable option, and it might take a little bit of adjustment if you're coming from mouse and keyboard, but after a little practice and a little muscle memory, I think honestly you might prefer this mode in the end. Especially if you do have access to a keyboard and mouse, it can help complement the overall settings. So let's first focus in on targeting. Targeting is the main key point. This is where everything really comes together. Under your start menu and then under character configuration, if you are in keyboard and mouse mode, you have this toggle that's going to kind of shift your settings and how everything kind of flips back and forth for easy access. Just make sure the gamepad mode is enabled and you're going to be good to go. So from here, under control settings, under target, you're going to see a couple of different targeting options here. You have the ignore depth and the cone. I've played with both of these. I actually don't have a preference when it comes down to it, so just use whatever kind of feels best for you. Under targeting, you also have your target ring, various things that you can place on the ground. Mine is set and unlocked to RB and L, meaning whenever I do a ground ability, if I'm not currently macroing it, I can go ahead and hold RB and move the L stick here to be able to kind of switch that up. Now you can set that to locked so that it's always going to be locked on your cursor if you prefer. So those are some targeting tips right there for you. You also have this option for automatically lock on target when initiating an auto attack. If you're a melee DPS or you're finding somebody, it's kind of hard to keep track of where you're supposed to be going, you can turn this on. You can manually automatically lock on target whenever you want by pressing down on the left stick as a button click. And that's what auto lock on target does. It keeps you focused, kind of Legend of Zelda style, on the target at hand, so you can kind of move around them, backing up and moving forward. It's really a matter of preference. You do with it what you will. Now under filters, this is where everything really comes together. You can have a couple of predefined filters like engaged enemies, party members, etc. So if I go ahead and just say, in this case I have it on all, I'm going to go ahead and customize this. So whenever my weapon is not drawn, this is what, when I cycle left and right on the D-pad, it's going to filter out. So let's say I don't want to target pets and minions, and I don't want to target party members. Those are two awesome options for you, and namely because your party members can be targeted by hitting the up and down arrow or the up and down buttons on the D-pad itself. So just keep that in mind, that you always have the ability to cycle through party members by using the up and down buttons. Now, whenever my weapon is drawn, maybe I just want to focus in on enemies. Now, there's another enemies one. You can see just engaged enemies. And so anything that's on the aggro list is only going to be what is targetable via the left and right whenever that is drawn. But in my case, I prefer enemies, so that way I say all enemies, aggroing enemies, and duty specific enemies, and those are important. And that kind of also then filters back here to your ignore depth and cone targeting filters as well. The other piece for your targeting is your enable customization that's below here on the filters. This says you can turn on additional filters by holding down the left bumper and pressing one of the face buttons, either A, B, X, Y, or I guess square, triangle, circle, X on the PlayStation. What this allows you to do is kind of have another set of these filters as opposed to just weapons drawn or sheathed, but you can actually sit here and say, I want all, I just want enemies, I want party members, and I want friends listed here on that. So let me show you how that actually works and looks. So you can see here that I'm in custom. Down here I'm going to move my mouse so that you can kind of see me because I can't point at the screen. So it says custom, and then if I draw, now it says enemies. This is your target filter here on the UI. Now if I go ahead and hold down the left bumper and press A, you can see I'm at party. Now X, I'm at friends. Y, I'm at all. And B, I'm at enemies. So within enemies, if I just press left and right on the D-pad, you can see I am not targeting a single thing here in the room. If I switch back to all, now you can see anything that is targetable will be filtered in and out. This is going to make you really, really effective when it comes down to it. Okay, so let's say you're engaged with an enemy here. I'm not actually locked on, so I have full ability to run around. I can lock in to kind of get it close in and tight. But let's say I want to target the level 70 striking dummy. I have a couple of options doing that. Let's say if I'm going in a kind of using my skills and attacking, holding the right bumper, you can actually do it with the left bumper and the right bumper as well, but it's a little awkward to hold with your hand. So holding down the right trigger, I can press the left bumper, and now I'm going to shift targets back and forth. Now I can keep doing this, and it's going to cycle between the two, just holding the trigger and using the bumper. This is really good for switching targets pretty quickly. Same thing kind of applies when holding down the left trigger and using the right bumper. Again, you can do it both ways, but now you can see I'm using my middle finger and then my index to cycle. Not very comfortable for me, but whatever ends up working for you from holding down the trigger as well. The other option you have is by holding down left bumper, you can actually cycle through your enemy list. So you can kind of see me highlighting it here where my enemy list is. So depending on how long that aggroing enemy list is, holding left bumper and moving up and down will help do that. Now, if I press up, I'm going to target myself because that's my party member. If I had other people in my party, you would see me be able to kind of cycle through that list on the controller as well. Okay, so now let's go ahead and talk about our movement and camera controls. So under Start and under Character Configuration, under the Control Settings and under General, you have two main options: Standard Type Character-Based and Legacy Type Camera-Based. Legacy Type is what is enabled for controller players by default, and what that gives you the ability to do is run around and move in any direction. So pressing back will have you run in that direction, pressing forward will have you run in that direction, and side to side, etc. Now you can see here that I zoomed out with the camera. I can hold down left bumper and zoom in and zoom out. You can even set it to where if you go all the way in, it goes into a first person camera mode, but that's okay. You can also enter in first person camera mode with nothing selected by pressing and clicking the right stick. So you have that freedom and that option as well. So you can use your camera, move it in and out, again, left bumper and up and down on the stick. Otherwise, if you do not have it, it's going to change the angle in which the camera is being used. So let's take a look at what Legacy Type is. Well, actually, okay, so now let's go ahead and take a look at what Standard Type is. Now I go ahead and apply that, and you can see here as I move and I move left and right, I will strafe left and right, and if I hit back, I'm going to step backwards and move around. So this is another way that you can control it, and by default this is how it is actually set up for keyboard and mouse. So if you more or less prefer this method, you have that ability to do so. Again, using the camera zoom in and out feature is still the same. There's no changes there, but this is just the way that you can kind of move around and get a good feel for how the game moves. But if you prefer this method and you want to have this method on the controller, you have full access to it. So you have those two options as well. Preferably I use Legacy Type camera base because that's just what I'm used to. This is where I come from as a gamer, but it's going to be up to you. So you can still have the best of both worlds as well. Okay, so now let's go ahead and talk about the different controller modes that you have access to. Again, under Start, Character Configuration, you want to go into your hotbar settings, and here is what I want to focus in on. You have a lot of settings here, and we go over those like in our deep dive UIs and different controller guides, but I want to talk about hold, toggle, and mixed. So in hold mode, I just have to hold down the right trigger or the left trigger, and you can see it's highlighted here at the bottom, and that allows me to access those skills and use them by pressing the buttons themselves. In a toggle mode, I can just press and click, and now all of a sudden I'm still using those abilities. I do not have to hold the triggers. This will make it impossible to use like your W cross hotbar and your expanded cross hotbar. Those don't work in either. They only really work in the hold mode, so keep that in mind. But if you're finding yourself maybe crafting or gathering and you don't necessarily want to feel like you have to hold down a trigger the entire time, you can pick the toggle mode and you have access to that. Now the best of both worlds, minus the fact that you don't have access to the cross hotbar or expanded cross hotbar, is the mixed mode. What this allows you to do is it allows you to both toggle by just pressing and clicking, or you can just press and hold, and if you release, it will be just like a hold mode. So just keep that in mind. Again, you still can't access the double cross hotbar, but you can access the expanded cross hotbar in your mixed mode, so to speak. So again, you can press and hold, not have to, or just press for the toggle, or you can hold to go into hold mode, and it's just a matter of time. So that's why you can't have access to the W cross hotbar, but you can't have access to the expanded. So both systems, I played around with those when they first came out. My preference was ended up being for mixed, but it still can end up causing needless errors, just especially as however you train it. It's more about muscle memory than anything else, so just keep that in mind for what works best for you. Okay, so perhaps the number one question that I typically get is how do I set skills to my hotbar, especially if you're on a PlayStation 4. For me, being that I'm on PC and I do have access to a mouse, I can just drag and drop them here. However, I can go in and press my select button. In this case, mine's Y because I auto map it. So I think by default, y'all's will be X. I kind of switched what the X and Y do just because that's my preference. And I'm going to be brought up with this menu option. So now I can go ahead and say where I want to. So under actions, let me go ahead and say like blood, boot shine, boom, I can put that right here. True strike, let's go ahead and drop that right there as well. It's that easy to kind of set it to your main hotbars. But typically the question comes in is how do I set it to my W cross hotbar left, right, or even my expanded cross hotbars as well? Like, because if you try to drag and drop onto this, it's not going to work. If I try to drag and drop onto this, it's not going to work. It looks like it's going to work. It's like, yep. And then it's like, nope, can't do it. So how do you do that? Well, a couple steps. First and foremost, you can't drag and drop things onto that. You're gonna have to go to character configuration and you're gonna have to go to your custom tab here. This is where they're both enabled and where they're linked. So you can see enable expanded controls with left trigger and right trigger. This is looking at hotbar 2 left and cross hotbar 7 right. And then for the expanded, it looks like I've got it set to 8 and 8 left and right. Let's go ahead and say 3 left and 3 right just to help illustrate that. So applying that. Okay, so I've got no skills there. So what I need to do under actions and trades, I'm going to go pick my skill. I'm going to set this to hotbar. So I'm going to hold down the right bumper to switch my hotbar to 3. And now I can set it right here. This is the earth, demolish, arm of the destroyer, whatever I want in whatever order. Same thing applies for the other side as well. And there you go. Those are what is set, and that's how I set it. Now you saw that my cross hotbar right here is number 2, and you can see where it's kind of giving you the preview of what it is. It says set 2. So if I hold down right bumper, hit B in this case to go to set 2. If I want to assign any actions and traits, if I want to roll, for example, I want to set this, assign to hotbar, and I can go and say right here, so that when I come here, now I have access to second wind as well. And then you can see here on the 7, that's usually probably pretty shared. You can do what you want. If you look at my controller guides for more in depth regarding kind of the placement of skills, you're going to find a lot of different options there. So again, you can't drag and drop. But what you also can do, where you have the option, is you can go into virtual mouse mode by holding down the left bumper and then right clicking. And now my right stick is acting as a mouse cursor. So I can kind of right click or left click different things. So if I hold down the left trigger, I'm going to be able to move skills around. This can go from any place, any hotbars that I want. So you have that ability. If let's say I went ahead and said, well, you know what, return, you can get out of here. I can right click again, or in this case left click, and it's going to remove that from here. So like kind of left click and then right click as well. So you can see if I hold down the right, it's going to act as a camera in this case. So you have a lot of options from that. To exit virtual mouse mode, hold the left bumper, click down on the right stick, and there you go. And then your system's back into camera mode and you're ready to go. This is very helpful if you do not have a mouse accessible like on PlayStation and you want to drag and drop skills onto different hotbars, especially if you're just having them placed out on your screen somewhere just to have access to a visual kind of key reference from that perspective. So we talked about the expanded cross hotbar, the W cross hotbar, setting actions to the hotbar. Moving around the hotbar is next. So if you wanted to just move skills around and you want to hold down the right or the left trigger, if you press the select or back button, you're going to go into edit mode. This is going to allow you to press a skill and then press a location to be able to move things easily around your UI here. So you don't have to always, the same thing, you don't have to always do the mouse click or be able to have to go into your actions and traits to be able to access this. Now you can see here I've got a lot of skills set up that I don't specifically need. So if you select a skill and select the same button, it's going to ask you if you want to go ahead and delete that from your hotbar. And so in this case I said yes. Let me move that back here. Let me get rid of this. Let me get rid of this. And there you go. So just using the controller, you can actually really help easily rearrange skills that are already set on your hotbar pretty quickly without having to even go into your actions and traits as well. So being that the system does allow you to set skills that you have yet to learn, you can kind of start predefining where you want them to go. And that way, as you learn them and they become available, it's going to open up a lot of options for you. All right, we've come to the last section, navigating your UI. There is a lot to cover here, so let's go ahead and dive into it. So as far as it goes, your UI can have a lot on it. You can manage it under your HUD layout, and you can control where things all show up. We go over this in depth in our deep dive guide, so just kind of play around with that. Check out that video if you haven't already. But it's as simple as this. You can press the select or the back button, and you're going to see that my mouse cursor, in this case the little hand, jumps from spot to spot, and I have a lot of different options within it. So let's say I want to go ahead and select either here. Once you're in a section, you can actually use the up and down arrows to cycle through it. So my current main scenario quest, or in this case Harder Than a Rock, which would be my class quest that I'm currently on, my job quest, etc. So if I go down here within the chat tab, then I have access via left and right and up and down to be able to jump around this control. Pressing select again will take me over to the quest where I can select the current quest, or I can actually click here to open up the map and navigate there. And then last but not least, I can have access to the compass where I can see different information here. Clicking this little setting will have and release the compass so it turns when I turn, or keeping it locked in place as well. So I have access to all this information. I can zoom in or zoom out as a part of that. And then finally, I have access to my various buffs that I currently have on my person at that time. So I can jump around easily the window here from the UI perspective. And again, if I needed to access anything else, I can always go into virtual mouse mode and go in and click different things as well. So you have access to the full thing without ever needing a keyboard or a mouse to play this game. So we talked about that. Let's talk about the map screen here for a little bit. So we talked about like the mini map, but if I go ahead and pull up my main map, I can use the right stick to navigate this option. Now I can also use the up and down buttons to be able to access other things as a part of the map itself. I can lock the map. I can actually prevent it from going inactive in transparency mode. I can show and hide icons on it. So I have a lot of controls listed here. I can center the map on me, and then I can just kind of move all the way to the world map as well. Now using a controller, I can press the right bumper and be able to kind of zoom in to the different sections of the map, or if I wanted to, I can even click on the different aetherytes to be able to kind of just easily teleport to those locations as well. So that's a really nice feature that you can kind of see anything that's clickable is going to be accessible via the right button. We talked about up and down. We talked about being able to click, but the other thing you can do is you can actually press the left and the right bumper together to be able to set flags. Now a flag could be set that where you could actually say and share that flag with any of your teammates as well. So just hitting say, it's going to put that central Thandalin option there. And then what I can do within my text box, I can actually select that and it's going to add the flag icon to my map. So this is very handy. Personally, I would love for them to have different color flags for your different party members, just so that you could have multiple flags on a map at one time. But maybe we'll see that as a future quality of life update to the game itself. But I think that's very handy to have, because especially if you're doing anything out in the open world, it can kind of help to say, like, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing, and it's as simple as pressing the left and right bumper together whenever you're in the main map mode. You can close it by just, again, pressing your main map button. I think it'd be X by default. In my case, it's Y, but you have a lot of freedom there. So then if you start moving, it's going to go in transparent mode, but you can easily access it by pressing the map button again to be able to close, or even reposition it if you want to keep it open, which you have access to by locking it and removing the transparency. And now whenever you move, it's going to be here. So if you wanted a bigger map to have access to, a little bit better of a tool, you could easily keep this up as a part of your UI HUD as well. So I'm going to go ahead and turn back on transparency and remove the lock, so that way I can close that out. So guys, that is the navigating the UI. That is setting skills, controller modes, movements, types, and targetings. There's a lot here. Hopefully this has been helpful. Hopefully you've gotten something out of this video and you've learned something. If you have any tips of your own, if you're a controller player, sound off in the comments below. Share them with your fellow Eorzeans here, and let's hopefully have a great time playing this game. For Work to Game, my name is Brian. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you have a phenomenal day, and I'll see you next time. Take care.
Hey, it's me.
It's been a while since I talked to you guys directly this way, but don't tell anybody. We've got even more epic content planned for this channel. The response has been incredible. We hope to see you. If you're new, hit subscribe, leave us a comment. I'd like to talk to you more about video games. I can't seem to speak my language. All right.